We ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Laurie Jadwin. I have the distinct honor of serving as your mayor. I very much appreciate you taking time out and coming into the air conditioning on this day. We arranged the weather to urge you to come in and hang out here in the air conditioning to talk about a very sexy topic, sanitary sewers. It is not the most glamorous topic, but it is a very critical one. I also want to recognize we have Councilman Renner, who is the Ward 1 Council representative, sitting in the back row there. And with me this evening, we have our Director of Engineering, Tom Comlank, and Marcy Bland, who is with the engineering firm of EMH&T. They'll be talking with you very shortly about the project, about what we've been doing and kind of what our next steps are. But I really wanted to begin first by just talking about why we're here tonight, how we got here. I first took office in January of 2020. To take you back to that time, that was pre-COVID. I was not in office 90 days when we had the first of two historic wet weather events. It wasn't just Gahanna, it was the Columbus area. The first one was March 19th, I believe, 19th, 20th of 2020, and then followed by almost an identical event about 60 days later in May. If you recall, those were significant rainfalls. It wasn't just Gahanna, it was throughout the Columbus area. They were doing boat rescues in northeast Columbus, which is just west of Gahanna. And there were many municipalities that had the types of issues that we did, i.e. Backups in basements. WIBs, as we call them, is the engineering vernacular that I now know. It's called short for water in basement, but we all know it wasn't necessarily just water at that time. I'm going to adjust this. While those were extreme weather events, what they did for us was, a relatively new mayor at the time, but what it did for me was really highlight the need for us to understand what was happening in our sanitary sewers. Understand there's sanitary sewers and there's stormwater. Tonight we are talking about sanitary sewers because that's what we were really dealing with. But those two issues led us to really truly begin in earnest a study so that we could understand not only what was happening, but work towards a solution. Now, I recognize that was 4 years ago, and you're sitting here going, that was 4 years ago, what have you been doing? I recognize for people, government moves slowly. It does, and sometimes that's frustrating, but it also does so for a reason. It does so because there are checks and balances that are in place. We have legislative processes and approvals that we have to go through. We have procedures that we have to follow for soliciting engineering firms and contractors to do work. There are a myriad of things that we have to go through, and it's for the benefit and protection of taxpayers, because at the end of the day, we are investing that valuable taxpayer dollar. So those things in and of itself bake in time to what we do. There are also factors outside of our control. We work with other municipalities, we work with consultants, we work with contractors, we're subject to their schedules. That also impacts how long things take. And in this particular case, this has been a multiple phase project that we have been working on. I can assure you that since those wet weather events happened in March and May of 2020, we have been at work trying to identify a problem and identify a workable solution. I will tell you this is not an easy problem. There's no quick fix to what we're going to talk about tonight. It is a complex problem, and it's going to take a complex solution. And there are much better minds than myself. I learned a lot about inflow and infiltration. I know much more about sanitary sewers than I ever thought I would want to know or ever would know in my lifetime. But what I know is not anywhere near what these two folks to the right of me know tonight. So with that, I would like to turn this next portion of the conversation over to our Director of Engineering, Tom Comlank, who will talk to you a little bit more about this project and help fill in the gaps as to what the last 4 years have been all about.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for everyone that's in attendance this evening. As the mayor alluded to, this is not the most glamorous type of project to otherwise be speaking to you about. From the, and I guess PowerPoint would be helpful. Went through the introductions. I'll give a general overview of what we're going to cover this evening, and then run into next steps and how we suggest proceeding forward. So The project area is basically the west side of the city of Gahanna, so subdivisions, Brentwood, Royal Manor, to the south, College Park and Heritage, I believe like Orchard Hill are a few of the subdivisions in the area. So basically the tributary area for the sanitary sewer system, everything to the west of the Big Walnut Creek. The sewer shed is just under 1,200 acres and just shy of 3,000 parcels. Within that area, it is tributary to a City of Columbus sanitary sewer trunk line that ultimately feeds into a wastewater treatment facility. So our system as a satellite community, much like other Central Ohio communities, ties into the City of Columbus system for overall treatment of the sanitary sewer. And the sanitary sewer would be using your restroom facilities, washer, cleaning dishes and things of that nature going down the drain. This not necessarily stormwater. Stormwater does come into play with respect to the inflow and infiltration. When we get an event such as the events that occurred in 2020, and I live just west of downtown Columbus, and I recall those events as well because my sump pump was going nonstop during the March event and actually blew up and had to go out and buy a new sump pump during that event. So it was a widespread event in March, and similarly in the area we experienced similar issues with the May event as well. So we had two significant events that occurred in a short time span in 2020. So let's see. As far as the overall evaluation, this stepped into surveys of going out to residents in the service territory, getting input from residents to take that information to then evaluate the sewer system itself, doing flow monitoring, and then modeling the system to see how the system otherwise would perform. Based off of that, then we went into further investigation of televising lines and doing dye testing to evaluate where, if we could identify point sources of the inflow and infiltration from that stormwater entering into the sanitary sewer system, causing the basement backups. So that occurred from, in that time continuum, right after those events, going through the solicitation of getting technical professionals on board to do the studies, evaluation, as well as coordinating with the City of Columbus at the tail end. So basically from October to just here in June, we've been doing a lot of coordination with the City of Columbus, again, as we tie into the sanitary sewer system owned, operated, and controlled by the City of Columbus. Then finally, as far as the overall overview of the presentation this evening, we'll go into the next steps. As mentioned, just under 1,200 acres, roughly 3,000 parcels. The homes in the subdivisions and the infrastructure were built in the early 1960s, 1960 to 1964. Homes in those subdivisions occurred from 1960 to roughly 1973. So that's kind of the timeline of when the vintage of the homes that were built in these areas that otherwise were impacted. Again, I'd mentioned we discharge into the 84-inch, and the red line through the municipal golf course and heading south is the 84-inch trunk line that is owned, operated by the City of Columbus. And the red lines that you see on this map are indicative of the sewer system servicing the entire service territory. So as far as an overall timeline of events, as we went through the subdivision being built, homes then going on the market. In 1990, there were similar events with backups in basements, as well as depressed driveways. So the city at the time evaluated and worked to mitigate those depressed driveways that otherwise tied into the sanitary sewer system, as well as any foundation drains in that area. It was in 1963 that the city of Columbus adopted an ordinance where through the collection system would not permit clean water to enter into the sanitary sewer system. So any of the rainwater that went into the foundation drains along the perimeter of your property, otherwise pre-1963, and even a little bit after that, as that programmatically got implemented across the region, some of the homes had foundation drains otherwise tying into the sanitary system, which with the 1990 storm event, similar events occurred, and then in 96 and 2002, mitigation with private residents on backflow and so forth otherwise occurred during that time period, which then leads up to 2020 and the events that were described earlier. The March and May events were the most recent incidents where we've had recorded of the sewer backups in the area. I believe it was around 70, 71 backups in the March event and 53 occurrences reported in the May 2020 event. And at this point in time, I'm going to turn things over to Marcy, and then I'll be back to discuss next steps and timeline after she is done.
Which one do I make it go forward? That one? Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the rainfall events that we had that in March and May, so you guys understand the magnitude of the rain that hit the area. Oh, I got to do it this way. So what this is, basically on March 18th through the 20th in 2020, we had 4.2 inches of rainfall in 2 days, it was saturated conditions, so a lot of that water ran off, which the conditions before and after the rainfall event make a big difference on how the sanitary sewer reacts. So we had saturated conditions. It was what was called a 10-year rainfall event. It's a statistical analysis of how often a rainfall, the chances of you getting 4.2 inches of rain in that period, how often that happens. The statistical analysis would say once every 10 years. We happen to get two back-to-back, and that is just, the nature of statistics and the nature of Mother Nature, right? So the second rain, and in that event, it was a 10-year rainfall event. We had 71 reported water in basements or sewer backups during that event. And then again, 3 months later, we had the May 18-19 event. And what the exhibit is that I'm showing there is that City of Columbus, this is a map that City of Columbus had from their rain gauge network. So City of Columbus has rain gauges plastered all throughout the city. And so what they did here, and it's hard for you guys to see, I couldn't make that scale quite big enough. But basically, all of the red that I have highlighted, those are rain gauges that recorded a 25-year rainfall event. But what hit Gahanna, the yellow, was a 10-year event. But as you can see, this wasn't a 10-year event that hit the city of Gahanna and then we had sewer backups. This event hit the entire city. So not only was this system responding to the rainfall, but the whole system was responding to the rainfall. You had, in that event, it was a 10-year event, and you had 53 reported water in basements in that event. There was no reported sanitary sewer overflows that the city was notified of.
Can I stop you? So what does that mean, no reported sanitary?
It just, so a sanitary sewer overflow, and we'll kind of get into this in a little bit later, is basically if the system is surcharging so much that it starts popping out manholes. That is a sanitary sewer, so where you have a direct discharge from sanitary sewage into the streets, the streams. So that is a sanitary sewer overflow. So we didn't have any of those reported. But what was important here is we had Gahanna 71 in one event and 53 in the other. There are other communities, one such had 700 water and basement complaints in that particular event. So it was very widespread. This was not, this wasn't isolated to Gahanna. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys that reference. One of the other communities had over 100 in that event. So it was all over. People were getting water in their basements because the system was just full. So talk about the sanitary sewer evaluation. Phase one, what took us so long, right? What took us so long to get here? So what we'd have to do in order to determine what's happening in that system is we have to install flow meters in the actual pipes that will record what's happening, how the flow comes up and down through just your regular average daily flow. So, you know, when you get up in the morning, everybody gets up in the morning, they take showers, water usage goes up, and then it comes back down as people go to work, and then it comes back up in the evening when people are home. So you want to see that, what's called a diurnal pattern, is how the usage fluctuates during any given day, and then what you also want to see is how that system responds when it rains. So that flow meter data placed throughout the city is what tells us how the system's responding to rainfall. So we take that rainfall data and we put that into a computer model, which will then simulate what's happening in the system since we can't really see it. It's all underground, right? Nobody thinks about the sanitary sewer until it backs up. So that was the first phase. Flow monitoring periods are anywhere from 3 months to a year, depending on what kind of rainfall data you get during that period. Sometimes Mother Nature's kind, you put the meters in and you get a really big rainfall event, and that happens really quickly, and other times you're in there for a year and you're still struggling to get that rainfall event. So the monitoring period and then developing the flow monitor or the flow model took some time. Once that was done, we did some field investigations from 2021 to 2022, trying to identify if there were any clean water connections, storm sewers, downspouts, foundation drains connected to the sanitary sewer system. We found none. And then once we went through that, looking for sources of I&I, then you go into the alternatives analysis. Once we try to figure out where's the rainfall coming from, then we go back to the computer model and try to determine how can we solve the surcharging problems. So I'll get into the details of what we did in the next few slides. Field investigations, what did we do? We went out and smoke tested, looking for any major connections, storm sewers, downspouts, those types of things. So what we do, we put a smoke blower on the sanitary sewer system, we fill the sanitary sewer. Maybe some of you guys remember us being in the area, you might have got some smoke in your house, and that's where it tells us if the smoke can get through, so does the sanitary sewer, so it follows the path of least resistance. So that can show us if there's cracks in the laterals, it shows us if the foundation drains are connected, downspouts, if roof downspouts are connected, or if any catch basins are connected. Then we followed up with dye testing. One of the things that we see often is where sanitary and storm sewers are running parallel in a roadway, and they construct them with, they usually put like compacted granular backfill, so it's usually like a gravel backfill, which is very porous. And you've got a storm sewer that's not designed to be watertight, and you have a sanitary sewer system that's supposed to be, but a lot of times the flow will pass back and forth between the two of those. We didn't find that either. What we did determine is that the sanitary sewer has insufficient capacity to handle rainwater that's entering the sanitary sewer system. And I'll get into some more details about that. So just giving you kind of heads up of what happens. So this is a graph from one of the flow meters. And as I talked previously about your diurnal pattern or your average daily use of your flow, that ebbs and flows, normal daily use, this is what you see here and here. So this is pre-rainfall event, and this is post-rainfall event. So what we see in the flow meter is what happens is you see that it starts to rain, and as it starts to rain, the flow builds up in the sanitary sewer, and then you get a really large rainfall event, and then you get this high peak. So your average daily flow is down here, completely within the system, and then when you get a large rainfall event, you get this large push of flow that comes through, which the sewer system can't pass it fast enough. So this is what you see. I&I, you hear people talk about I&I, that's called inflow and infiltration. Inflow is like as a direct connection. That is a downspout, a catch basin, a foundation drain. That's inflow. That's a direct inflow. You usually see a really high peak that comes in. We did not find those because of the previous work that you guys did in 1990 when there was a large backups. They mitigated all of that. They went in, they removed foundation drains. So it wasn't surprising that we didn't see that type of response in the system because all that was previously mitigated by the city. Infiltration, however, is stuff that's coming in through the system through cracks in your system, through laterals, through defects, basically, either in the main line or in the private system. 50% of infiltration that enters into a sanitary system is from private property and not public. So that's your sanitary laterals, any kind of defects in the sanitary, the connection between the sanitary, your lateral where it connects to the main line. That's a common place for infiltration to come in. That's just standard groundwater that comes into the system through joints, little cracks in the system. So what we found with the investigation is that basically the I&I, so that's inflow and infiltration, when it rains, so when that 4 inches of rain hit the area, 8.6% of that enters the sanitary sewer system, which is not ever designed, the sanitary sewer was not designed to handle that type of, it's not designed to handle stormwater. So it's never sized to handle that. However, I will say there are communities, again, some of the ones that had 700 water in basements that have maybe a 40% rainfall capture, where 40% of that rainfall is getting into the sanitary sewer system. So 8.6% is actually a very reasonable number for the age of this system. So that kind of led us to, okay, now what are we going to do now? Because we've got a system that obviously is surcharging, but it's not easy fix. It's not, I'm going to go off and remove this storm sewer connection. I'm not moving this downspout. Gahanna's already done all of that stuff. They've done the stuff that you can actually pull out. It's basically every line, every crack, just as it ages is allowing that to come in. So that 8.6, I know is wreaking havoc for the residents, but it's really not a bad operating system when it comes to the amount of rainwater that's getting in there. Does that make sense? Okay. So one of the things that we always look at is when the sewer was designed, right? So we already said that the sewer was designed in the 1960s, installed in the 1960s. In that day, sewers were installed based off 10 state standards, which is what the EPA recommends for the design standard. That is 100 gallons per person per day, which includes an I&I factor, which means the I&I, the stormwater, a little bit, you anticipate you're going to get a little bit of that in. And then your peak flow, your peaking factor that you see is based off population. So for larger areas, your peaking factor goes down. So with this being 3,000 acres, your peaking factor goes down from maybe 4.5 down to 2.5. So in that day, when the sewers were designed, they were designed based off of that standard. So what we did is looked if they were designed today, based off today's City of Columbus sanitary sewer calculations, what would those look like? And it was very consistent with what we were seeing in the model, is that the sewers, very difficult to see from this, but if you see these purple, so this is the main trunk sewer. It starts at Coronation, comes down to Imperial, and then down through here till it connects to the Big Walnut trunk sewer. These purple lines are where the sewer is 100, it's the sewage that the sewer's seeing exceeds the capacity of the sewer by 150%. And then the red is 100 to 115, I believe. So as you can see, what happens is when you have that increased rainfall and this sewer can't pass it fast enough, what happens is it starts backing up. So that's what's happening in the system, and I can show you a profile of it. So this is the system. If I went and I took and I drew a line right down the main trunk sewer, and I cut it in half, and we watched what happens in the flow, this is what's called the profile, okay? So these little things here, those are manholes, and this is your mainline sewer pipe. So what this shows with the model is when a 10-year rainfall event happens, so when we get that 4.5 inches of rain, what happens to the sanitary sewer system? It starts backing up. And if you can see how high that backs up in the sewer. So what happens if you have where these little red circles here, those are other sewers that come out to service the residents. The whole system starts to back up into there, and then unfortunately it can start to cause backups into people's basements also. The 25-year rainfall event, so if we throw a 25-year rainfall event onto our model, it shows it even gets higher and to the point where you actually have sanitary sewage coming out of manholes. So this is the situation that we're dealing with and what we're trying to solve. This is the problem we're trying to solve, is how do we make this not happen, right? Impacts of surcharging during rainfall events. We evaluated it with the sanitary sewer model. These are predicted conditions. Now I want to caveat that. We did not go out and survey everybody's basement. So when we put this in, the model in, we're predicting what's going to happen, but we look at each type of home and we determine, is the basement 8 foot below ground or is it 4 foot below ground? And then we compare that estimated basement elevation with that blue line that you saw in that sanitary profile and determine which properties are predicted that are within the influence of that surcharging. It does not mean that every blue property is going to get water and basements. And we never saw that many. I think there's 293 properties up there for a 10-year event that could be impacted. We saw 71 in one and 53 in the other. So this is an estimation, but it just gives you an idea of about where the issues are when it comes to capacity. So we estimated 293. And then there was only 53 reported during that event. Reason being is once somebody's basement starts to surcharge, that hydraulic grade line, that line comes down a little bit. So that's why you can't really predict how many are actually going to get water in basements, but we just let you know which properties are in danger. Alternatives analysis, what did we do then? We actually went through, we took that model, and our goal is to relieve the surcharging in the system to the extent possible and relieve, to try to eliminate, can't eliminate, but try to reduce the risk of water in basement or sewer backup. We utilized the calibrated model, so that calibrated model that we talked about previously, and then we ran through alternatives, looking at inflow and infiltration redirection. Again, a lot of that was already done. We still looked at, can we reduce the I&I further? And it just wasn't cost effective because we would have to basically go onto every property to do I&I reduction, and more so than what has already been done. So we looked at lining mainline sewers. We looked at capacity improvements, relief sewers, replacement, pump stations. We looked at containment. We looked at storage options. Can we store it temporarily until the system has enough capacity? We've looked at backflow prevention. We looked at water reuse. So this list here is the 22 options that we evaluated to try to figure out what the best solution was for the city of Gahanna. So the recommended alternative that we've come up with is a relief sewer. And basically what this relief sewer does is it relieves the sewer in 2 points. One of them is at Coronation Drive up here, and then the other one's down here at Imperial. So what it does is it basically takes a lot of this flow and then pulls it into this relief sewer, which allows the existing sewer and connections to operate within capacity. So what does this relief sewer do? It reduces the predicted water and basement occurrences or sewer backups for a 10-year event. Why a 10-year? I'll explain that in a little bit. But what happens then with this relief sewer? And so this was the red line. This was the hydraulic grade line that I talked about before, which is the surcharging in the system. And what happens after with this relief sewer in is this blue line is now the sewer hydraulic grade line. So this is what is happening during a 10-year event. It brings that water level down back into as close as we can get into the pipe. So what this does is it increases the flow into Columbus's system, which was the challenge. Yes, sir. The relief sewer is right at Coronation. So in this, these are concepts, so we just put it, we haven't done any detailed design yet, but we know we need to relieve the system up by Coronation Drive and then down by Imperial. Those are the 2 areas where we need to relieve. Where's that at? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what happens up here is we relieve it, when we take that flow off into that relief sewer, then the sewer that's over the existing sewer, then you don't have it, you're not pushing as much flow into there because you're putting it over into this other sewer. So that brings that grade, that flow down in that existing sewer. So we're, well, I don't know exactly where you're, down here? So actually down through here, so this is that part of the sewer. It's not, once we put this relief sewer in there, the surcharging is better. So there's no predicted WIBs in that area once we get this in. So based on the.
So you're just running a parallel trunk line?
Correct. Yes. Backflow prevention is, so let me back up. The 2.18 CFS, we're increasing flow to Columbus. So that we had to go through an approval process with the city of Columbus in order to increase the flow we're sending them. And then there are, so the 10-year event, why do we pick a 10-year event? That's what City of Columbus designs their system to. So their level of service for water and basement is 10-year. For sanitary sewer overflow, it's a 25-year. We can't exceed what the system that we're delivering to. So these systems were never designed to handle this volume of stormwater. Yes? It'll dump in, we'll refine that, but we have it dumping in over here right now, over by 62, that's. If you have a if Columbus's system backs up, will it back into? That does have the play in it, but we do have that result in the model. We account for that in the model also. Yes. So the 25-year event, that's for sanitary sewer overflows, right? So 10 years for water and basement. So when you have a 25-year event, and I'll show you that, there are still parcels that could be impacted based on our estimated basement elevations with a 25-year event. This will not solve every rainfall event. If we get a 100-year rainfall event that hits the city of Columbus, everybody's sewers are going to back up. It's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. They weren't ever designed to handle stormwater, and it's just not even feasible to try to size them to handle the stormwater. So in order to construct this relief sewer that we have shown, which again starts up at Coronation, works its way down over to the Big Walnut, just the trunk sewer cost is around $4.9 million. That's what our estimate is.
You're alleviating those areas, but you're adding in 300, 250 houses on, units on Old Johnstown, and it's proposed, from what I understand, another 280 on the corner of James and Old Johnstown. So, that alone, okay, you fix that problem. Now, has anybody taken into account that
Yes.
extra flow with that? Because
Yes, we do evaluate that, and so here's, Gahanna's sanitary sewer system operates perfectly fine on any given day. So your average daily flow, so when you add that average daily flow into the system, which is just your standard everyday water usage, this is a new system. You're actually probably removing I&I because it's a new system. It's built to today's standards. So your average daily flow is accounted for when you're, in your standard everyday operation. When you throw that storm, you're not adding additional storm water from those 300 and however many homes that.
he's still right. You're adding
It does change.
infrastructure on the sanitary,
Yes.
which is becoming inundated from the storm. So he's completely right.
Absolutely, I'm not discouraging. So what we do is we include that flow into the model, and we can say, is this, and we did, and we've evaluated that, and it's in the report, is it increases, so when that storm hits, it changes your hydraulic grade line by 0.25 inches. So we account for that in the study, and we evaluated that, and we give that to the city to make a determination on what that
He's
is.
going along exactly with the point that you said, that this system wasn't designed for this type of capacity, basically.
It's not designed for, no, it's designed, it handles the regular sanitary flow perfectly fine. It's the the storm water that has the issue, yes.
Yeah, his point is correct. You're still adding.
You're adding flow, absolutely. It does impact it. You're adding, yes, sir. You are adding average daily flow to the system. You're not adding additional rainfall.
And as that system will be brand new, but what you're tying into is not.
No. Yep. So key considerations, things that we want to think about. One, again, the sanitary sewers were not designed to handle the stormwater. Project reduces the risk of basement backups, but does not eliminate it. The elevation of the basement backups the evaluation was for the 10-year for basement backups. We did do an evaluation for the 25-year just so that we understood the impact, and I'll show you that slide in a minute. The larger events may still trigger a basement backup. Again, if you have you get 8 inches of rain. I happened to be camping up at Port Clinton last year, and we got a 500-year rainfall event. 8 inches of rain in 8 hours. If that hits the system, this relief sewer is not going to solve the problem. And then you've got, the city does have limited discharge to Columbus. So we don't have basically an open checkbook that says we're going to put a 36-inch sewer here and we're going to send all this flow to Columbus. We can't do that. So Columbus is not going to accept rainwater through the system. So we had to go through the process, which I have a slide to talk about the process for that too. So City of Columbus system, again, 10-year level of service for basement backups, 25-year for sewer overflows. We can't exceed what City of Columbus is designing for. So this is basically the 25-year event. We ran that, and we did that same basement evaluation. And this is what the map looked like before. So the one on the left is what it looked like before the relief sewer. And then the one on the right are still the areas that may possibly have a concern. It does not mean by any means, this is within inches. If you're a couple inches higher than what we're predicting, you would, in order to try to determine exactly which homes, you would have to do a very detailed survey of everybody's basement, get inside the house, do measure downs, way more, way more than what we did here. So there are still some properties that are, there's a couple down here in this lower corner, there's a couple on this road along here, and there's a couple up in the top. There was still 101 that were predicted that possibly could be impacted, and then, so we would still encourage the city's backflow prevention program in order for you to accept backflow prevention.
You're talking about residential backflow prevention?
Residential backflow prevention. It just stops the sewer from coming back into your home.
You're not talking about domestic water, you're talking about backwater.
Yes, yes.
They don't pay for it. Other cities paid for it, but Gahanna did not.
That's,
I worked actually, you got a permit for something.
Whitehall paid for theirs.
You had to pay for the backflow preventer and have it inspected.
Whitehall didn't. They
So
paid for theirs.
that, so other cities are charging, I mean, I don't see why not, I mean, that way you make sure it's going to where it's supposed to go.
No, $3,000.
No. But other cities do.
Whitehall's bid actually for, I actually just looked at that before I came in, and the bid was about $3,000 per home is what the contractor charged for a backflow preventer to be installed. It was, but that was the bid. I just looked at it, promise.
No, I'm not joking, that seems way too cheap for a backwater problem.
Yeah, 3,000 is what.
We had the backflow, installed after the second
Mhm.
flood year. We were one of the fortunate ones in front of all 3 times back in 1990.
Mhm.
And did it twice in 2020. Following the second flood, we had that put in, and it does help, because it cost us $2,500 for the contractor. He jacked up a basement around 2 feet deep by 6 foot, put flint in. The valve has worked twice since then, which shut off the water flow back of the house.
Mhm.
We have a way of testing that. You can open it up and see it looking good. If sewage is coming in your house, last thing you want to do is take a look at it, you don't have to.
Right.
Twice it's shut the water from that back door. We do not have this kind of rains since May, since 2010 year. It was not that 10 year rain, no.
Mhm.
Twice the backflow shut off.
Yeah. And, you know, with a backflow preventer, they are not maintenance-free, right? You have to maintain them. You know, the homeowner has to make sure they get in there, make sure that they're clear of, you know, flushable wipes is probably one of the biggest that's wreaking havoc on sanitary sewer systems everywhere. If one of those flushable wipe gets in there and it stops that backflow valve from completely closing, you can still get, yeah. Yeah. And it all depends on the makeup of your home, you know, who's in your home, do they have long hair like me, do they lose a lot of hair? You know, because that types of things are what can cause those to break up. So they are not maintenance-free. If you know it's gonna be a big rainfall event, then, you know, it is suggested you go down there and just make sure that they're free of debris. So they are not like you put them in and forget it. It does alert you when it's closed because you can't use a lot of water. You can't be doing laundry when your backflow is closed. But this is not long-term that these are closed. You know, the system peaks and then it relieves itself. So it's not days that typically I would say that it's not closed. Yes?
I'm having a hard time determining where on the right, the blue area that you said those would still be at high risk. I can't tell where that is.
This around here or this top up here?
Where all this comes up.
If I remember, McCutcheon is back here. This is,
That's like Amesbury, Danville, it's that, the back part of Rural Manor behind the
thank you.
Can we get copies of that?
Of the,
So if you provided your sign-in information, we can send you a copy.
Can I ask you a couple more questions?
you can, let me get through the rest of the slides in case I answer them, and then we'll finish up. So the Columbus coordination, when we first went to Columbus, they said absolutely no, because when they evaluate flow, into their system. They look at the entire system, and are we increasing sanitary sewer overflows downstream? So their first response back to us was, no, we cannot send an additional 2 CFS to their system because 11 and a half miles downstream we're causing increased manhole overflows. So they look at the entire system for manhole overflows, and are we creating any additional water and basement backups in Columbus's system when we put this relief sewer in? So they had to go through their own modeling process. So we started coordinating with the city of Columbus in July of 2023. That was the first meeting that we had. We had to give them our model. We had to give them our proposed recommendation, and then they modeled it. They came back June 4th of this year and finally gave us a conditional approval to do this relief sewer. This conditional approval, City of Columbus is working on some capacity improvements that need to be done within their system, which one of them is putting in a control gate that stops flow, that will shut off flow from New Albany, basically, store it into their system, and then relieve it later at a later date, or not a later date, but a later time when the system can relieve itself. So once that control gate is in place, then Gahanna is able to proceed with their sanitary sewer, their sanitary relief sewer. So we did, first quarter of 2026 was when we were authorized to actually start construction, and not before that. So Tom, do you want to talk about next, or you want to ask me questions first?
It pertains to what your study was, so you're saying basically this, you're getting stormwater infiltrating the sanitary sewer in heavy rains, and you're saying the bulk of this is due to piping underground, it's just.
50% comes from, yes, yes. We didn't find any direct connections, stormwater connections, that type of connection that would be easily disconnected. It's just your standard joints in the sanitary, they were clay, they starts to fail. Right.
Did you guys test any of the stormwater to see if it had sanitary in it?
No, what we did do is we flooded this storm sewer. So what we did was we put a big plug, flood the storm sewer, and then televised the sanitary to see if there was any transference between the two, and there was none, which is not the case in most communities.
If it's going one way, it's gotta be able to go.
Like I said, it wasn't going that way.
I know, that's my point though.
No,
If it's going from,
it's not coming from the storm sewer system. It's coming from the ground. So what we're getting is groundwater infiltration. It's not inflow, correct. So we're not getting inflow. Yes, absolutely. If it can go one way, it can pass the other. But in this particular case, it's the groundwater that's getting in.
what's getting into the storm.
Right. Yes. Yes, sir.
The sewer in my place is like 12 foot deep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could rain all day and it never get down to my sewer.
Mm-hmm.
So, right?
No,
How deep is it normally, the sewer?
is sewer anywhere from 8 foot is the most shallow. Well, it's not the most shallow. It's recommended the most shallow is 8 feet, and anywhere we've constructed them 30 feet deep. We've constructed them 40 foot deep in Hilliard.
Lowest one is the worst.
Well, okay, so now I'm going to back up for a quick second. So shortly after this May rainfall event, and we started getting into this process, I remember Mr. Jim Turner, he got a phone call that he had a water and basement backup, and he wanted me to check into it. There was no way that water and basement backup was due to the sanitary sewer. So there are reported water and basements that could be, I'm not saying that yours is, could be defective sanitary lateral, full of roots. So you've got a lot of storm water coming in, and it's not getting out because you have roots in the sewer. So I'm not saying that's your case, but that does happen too. So some of these 71 and some of these 53 could have been private issues. The one that we happened to look at on that day was located at the very top part of the system, and what we found is that there was no way the surcharging was getting up that far. So it was actually a private problem. So there are still private problems that can cause your sewer to back up. So I'm not saying that that's the case, but if you're outside of that surcharging that we're showing, we could probably look at your house specifically.
I got a back built that way.
Okay.
And what it did was I have a cap where you can put a snake down there
Mm-hmm.
and look at stuff. And it blew the top off of that. So two guys come out from the sewer,
Well, if you, the only way, we evaluated that. And City of Columbus has that. So City of Columbus, I don't know if you've ever heard of Blueprint Columbus, right? That's Columbus's I&I reduction. They go onto private property, they do downspout redirection, so they take your downspouts, put them out to the roof, they line your sanitary sewer, they line the mainline sewer. That project is getting a 30% reduction. By doing that level, they're lining main lines, they're lining laterals up to the house, they're putting in sump pumps and downspout redirections. It is over, just to do the downspout redirection, the lateral lining, you're talking over $15,000 per property to get a 30% reduction. And these are areas that have high I&I. These are areas that are getting 20 and 30% I&I. You guys are starting at such a low level at 8.6%. We tried to see if we could get a 30% reduction. What would that do to the system? And it did not relieve the problem. So the relief sewer was the solution.
So if you were to line the oldest of the infrastructure,
Not unless you're going to do private property. No, if you line the main line, you're not going to get any. We did this in Sullivan Avenue. We did an I&I study, and we actually did some comparison data where we went in and we lined the main line. We actually got an increase in flow because the sewer wasn't exfiltrating through the joints. So when we lined it and you tightened up the system, it can't come out, but it's still going to come in at every lateral connection. So every lateral connection that you have is a source of I&I. So you're not plugging, when you're doing a lining of the main line, you're not plugging those lateral connections. So mainline lighting alone is not going to get you where you need to be. They did mainline and lateral. So they went on to private property and did private property. And they did put in a sump pump, and they redirected downspouts because the theory was that if we redirected the downspout water, the roof water, out to the impervious pavement into the street, it can't get into the foundation drains. And therefore, then you line the main line. So you take the roof water to the street, which you guys already have it because Gahanna did that back in 1990. So a lot of the stuff that Columbus does with Blueprint, where they get a 30% reduction, they're starting from a much higher I&I number than where you guys are. So your guys' target level to get that, to reduce that 8%, it would be really challenging to try to do it that way, unless you're going to try to go and seal the entire system, which would be a lot more expensive than the relief sewers. Yes?
I have a question. Of the two incidents in March and May,
Yes.
how many of those people were the same people?
That is a good question. We had that, and then we took it off the slide. There was a lot of overlap, but I'll have to get back to you on that one. Honestly, I didn't. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap because when you see, and we had those on here so you can kind of see the patterns of where we're predicting versus which ones, and then we just felt like it was better for people's not to show them on the slide. So, but yes, there was a lot of overlap. And which would be anticipated because it's all about the elevation of your basement versus the surcharging level in that sanitary sewer. So it would be, you would assume that they would be the same properties. Did we smoke test down in that area? We did not smoke test down there. We were looking up where the storm sewers and the sanitaries were crossing was more of the focus to try to find out if it was passing in between. And in that area, but when we looked at the flow meters, so there was flow meters that were put out, so like one small area had a flow meter, another small, so there was like over 10 flow meters that were put into this area. There was no indication that we needed to do ice. So when we looked at the flow monitoring data for that particular sewer, we didn't see that there was a big spike that we needed to do in the investigation. So where we focused, where we had the higher percent captures. So where more of the rainwater got in, that's where we did the field investigation. So if the area was showing a very low, then we didn't do that additional investigation.
We still get water, we
In your lateral? In your lateral? Okay. So the folks, the properties that are close to the outfall where we connect, you are seeing a very high surcharge because it's not, you can't, it's surcharging. So if you saw, remember that profile that I showed you of the sewer, it surcharges close to the top of the manholes. So you are getting enough flow. Just because your area may not be introducing that stormwater flow, you're still being impacted because it can't get out. Any more questions? Yes, sir. You're good. I'm here to answer your questions the best I can. Well, again, so the EPA, when they put City of Columbus under findings and orders back in 2009, because of this particular issue, because of people getting sewage in their basements and because people getting sanitary sewer overflows. That is what sparked this overall study. And every community's done it. City of Columbus, they're doing models, they're investigating I&I, and that's where they laid those 10-year rainfall event for a water and basement, 25 for sanitary sewer overflow, because you can't protect it for any rainfall event. So they set those limits on what was feasible. So that was coordination between the City of Columbus, all the satellite communities, and the Ohio EPA. So no, nobody wants you to get sewage in your basement. I think that's where we encourage the backflow preventer just to be safe once these relief sewers are put in place. Yes, sir.
Early on, there was a slide that it was stated that there were some issues found with the 84-inch trunk.
No issues with the 84-inch trunk. What's happening with the 84-inch trunk, it actually flows good. So the Big Walnut trunk sewer, which is what you connect to, and then you've got over on the east side, you got the Blacklit Creek trunk sewer that comes in, and then you got the Alum Creek, which services Westerville. So Blacklick does New Albany, Jefferson Water and Sewer District, all that area over there comes in through the Blacklick Creek. All three of these sewers come together. Alum Creek, Big Walnut, and Blacklick all come together at the same point. Columbus has several projects in place because that is a place where there's a capacity issue, which is called Three Creeks. So I don't know if you've ever heard that. So the Three Creeks Tunnel, City of Columbus is going out for RFP for the Three Creeks Tunnel, but it's a tunnel. It's a long design process. So one of the things they're doing in the meantime is putting in a control gate that will shut the Blacklick Creek tunnel, utilize the tunnel. It's 150 feet deep. They utilize that tunnel for storage, which will help relieve some of the surcharging that's happening because of those three sewers go together.
So Columbus is not having any issue with the contribution from
Once the Blacklick Creek trunk sewer comes in, that issue, so we can't construct until after that control gate is in place. Yes. If we sent the additional two CFS today, and we had a 10-year rainfall event that hit citywide like that, yes, it would increase. It would increase. It didn't increase anybody's sewer backup, but it did increase some manhole overflows. That's why they said we couldn't do it.
The part that doesn't make sense, all big branch lines, you say behind the Three Creeks, there's construction in every one of those areas. We can't handle the infrastructure, but we won't stop building. Nobody's willing to say something's gotta happen here.
Yeah.
That's the part that blows my mind. They know it's an issue, but nobody's willing to put a stop to it.
And again,
And we are paying.
they are working on it. They're working on it. They are doing, and very fast paced, I will say, too. Before Intel flow comes on, the Blacklick, so the gate has to be in place before the additional flow can come in through that area. So yes. The control gate is not.
I'm just saying, the basic infrastructure is way outdated compared to the rate.
The Three Creeks Tunnel it's, I don't know what the schedule is on it, but I know they are moving it forward.
Does the new high school have any impact on sewer system?
For the high school? N- No, we didn't find anything in that area that was. Are they, oh, it did, well, I don't think, do they have basements? Does the high school have basement? The biggest thing is, you know, if you're on surface, you're good. You know, if you don't have any sewage, if you don't have any piping below ground, you don't have basement service, then for the most part, you're okay. Because there was a lot of slab houses in here that didn't have backup issues, obviously, because they're at the surface. Yes, ma'am.
So, you're encouraging that little valve, in private homes to put that in place. Is there any kind of program to help residents with that cost?
I will hand it back over to them. And
Can I correct you on that? Those are back water valves, devices.
Backwater valves.
Back what?
You're correct.
If they call a contractor and say, I need a backflow, they're gonna get the wrong thing.
Yes, it's a backwater valve.
Yes.
No, you're fine. I have it because it's the back, I mean, most of the communities are calling backflow preventers.
So,
It's not a backflow preventer on a water line, right? So it's a backwater valve.
so I think this is an appropriate time to step into the next steps, which we can kind of dovetail into the back check valve approach, as well as the relief sewer. So first step was, again, I appreciate everyone's attention, the questions posed. We're here to serve the community and try to come to a solution that is cost conscious and better serves the community. I see that as a belt and suspenders approach. The relief sewer that EMH&T is otherwise suggesting and recommending, that does provide some relief up to the 10-year event. Again, we are dealing with rainwater infiltration. It's not, the system does not have the challenges during normal dry weather flows. So when you get these peaks of a 10-year, 25-year, and this is why, you know, with, okay, yeah, we had two what were classified as 10-year storm events, but if we hit a 25-year, we hit a 50-year, we hit a 100-year event, there are no guarantees that the system will otherwise be able to accommodate that. And we can't build our way out of it. It's much like traffic. You can't build enough lanes to accommodate the peak traffic that comes through the community during, you know, rush hour during the day. Otherwise, it would decimate the community and the character and urban fabric. I know that that's a slight deviation, but that's above grade, and you can witness that, see that on a daily basis. What we're dealing with is underground. So when we get the 25-year event, and with weather events occurring at a more frequent interval, yes, we may, I don't have a crystal ball to be able to indicate when that next event will occur. But if we hit that 25, 50-year event, yeah, the system, and not only Gahanna system, but this is region-wide, will not be able to accommodate that. So with respect to, on the private side, the best recourse is to have that back check valve installed. That can be a conversation with council in regards to an overall approach. I can't speak for council as it relates to whether or not public funds, sewer funds go towards private source issues. What we can look at and explore, and the recommendations of EMH&T are to provide that relief up to the 10-year event, consistent with designs that are modern day with the City of Columbus design standards, with that 130 gallons of flow versus the 100 on the 10 state standard. So our staff's recommendation to council, we will be presenting to council here on September 9th, unless things change. We will be making the recommendation on the relief sewer, working towards capital improvement program integration. So there's a lot of work occurring in and throughout town. There is a major utility provider that has proposed plans for utility work through the city. Stigler-Agler 62 is a bottleneck, and we have that programmed in our CIP to evaluate and provide some relief to that. So this is right within some of the same corridors, so we need to properly plan for that, as well as Marcia alluded to, with our ability to tie into the Columbus system, limited by we can't tie in until Q1 of '26. It's going to take all that time just to, if we got the go-ahead from council, funds appropriated, to go through the process through the Ohio Revised Code to select a consultant for the design services. Then there's utility coordination to make sure that we're not interfering with water, storm, sanitary, electric, so forth, the coordination associated with that. And then overall permitting through OEPA and the city of Columbus. So we've got at least a year's worth of design work in addition to utility coordination that otherwise would occur with that before we're in a position to otherwise bid the project. Of a project of this magnitude, I could see it being phased. Marcia had mentioned from the outfall, the relief section tying into the Big Walnut 84-inch relief sewer. And this could take different paths, going from basically what I would consider West Johnstown extended, tying into the 84. I don't know if that's ultimately the alignment, but that's how it's prescribed in the illustrations that we've presented to you. Following a path down West Johnstown, up South Stigler, up through the Stigler-Agler 62 intersection, up to Agler, over to Imperial, to get that point of connection to relieve some of the flow. And then a phase two progressing north, up Imperial through Regents to Coronation to provide the relief. And as we're doing that, we'd be mindful of other improvements otherwise necessary in the corridors, looking at the curb and gutter condition, looking at the pavement condition, looking at, are the water lines, have we had break histories on the water line that are in a age condition that while we have everything torn up and not inconveniencing the residents, multiple years of construction, taking a proactive approach in regards to the overall infrastructure within a given corridor, as well as stormwater. So in areas, now this is outside of the sanitary, are there roadway drainage improvements through that area that we otherwise would want to accommodate within those improvements? So again, as I see it, our presentation going forward to council on the 9th with a recommendation of the relief sewer, conversations related to the back check program, because I believe that is a part in the overall systematic side, because we can't design the system to accommodate the 25, the 50, the 100-year event. So with that, it's just prudent for those to go in place to provide the added protection to the residents. So this was the point where I was going to open the floor to questions. So if there are further questions, we can.
Are the paths all following roadways for this proposed?
Well, and that was one of the evaluations, because a lot of the sewer system is in rear yards, and so dealing with getting access to the backyards, the easements that were otherwise prescribed when the subdivisions were platted are very small, 10-foot easements, fences, mature landscaping and so forth. The ability to otherwise to get back into the backyards would be extremely problematic. So the proposed alignment with the relief sewer wood as, I think it's Deerwood, just north of Coronation. As that's crossing Coronation, there's a manhole, and if there isn't one, we'll set a new structure there. That would be the point where we'd capture some of the flow north, going up to McCutcheon, to capture that flow, to have that head south, down Regents to Imperial and down to the 84. But I see that building the system from the point of connection at the 84, working our way upstream.
And that alignment's not set.
No, I get it.
So that, it's just basically, at this point, it's conceptual, we need to get this flow to
Right.
this.
So roughly, were you talking about tying into the 84?
We
Yeah,
have to
we came up
determine.
with it.
Yeah, another route could be just continuing it straight down Agler, and then hitting Ridenhour and going south on Ridenhour to West Johnstown. So as we get into design, if we proceed down the recommended path, that detailed design portion otherwise would be covered in the schematic alignment and detailed design.
You gotta stay 10 feet off storm, you gotta stay 10 feet off the water, so that'll all determine where we can go.
Yes.
Will these slides be on the website?
Yes, we can make them available. Yes.
What's the line size you're considering for the?
Now, I don't know much about sewers, but in the backyard, we have a manhole thing, and every time it rains, the water just floods there. Not that I'm talking about really heavy rain, just because it just gushes and it sits there, and it puddles, and it's what his yard, our yard, and another neighbor's yard. Is there something to be done for that, like maybe a French drain or something?
So if I could get your address to see, one, to make sure that, is it sanitary, is it storm sewer, and seeing where where the infrastructure is otherwise in place to, and look at the grading plan of the subdivision to see how it's intended to drain.
Right now, to West Johnstown Road, east, when that goes in, we'll make that big enough that I can drive my truck through there.
Yes, we do. We do have the thoroughfare plan that is underway.
So you're saying construction, tearing up things like that wouldn't be happening until 2026?
At the earliest, 2026.
So if I want to put a swing set in my backyard, I don't worry about getting it torn down, how do we get that?
Well, and the proposals that we're looking at is all within roadway right-of-way as opposed to getting into rear yards. Yes? So where's the money coming from? Great question. So as a municipal utility, you pay into special revenue funds as you pay your water and sewer bills. So those funds that are otherwise collected, and I will say a vast majority of the collection goes to pay the city of Columbus for the water that they provide to the city of Gahanna, as well as the treatment of the effluent in the sewer system that comes from the use of the potable water. We do have a surcharge, and I do not have that number committed to memory, a certain percentage that adds on to the Columbus rate that then comes into a proprietary enterprise special revenue fund that can only be used for the purposes of sanitary improvements. We have one for domestic water and similarly a stormwater utility. And those funds can only be used for the purpose of storm, sanitary, and water and the respective accounts. With that, we evaluate the rates on annual basis and look at our cost recovery, and so I cannot tell you that.
I would say Columbus sets their rates in October, so we wait to see what Columbus rates are, because obviously that is, again, as Tom just said, a portion of your water bill is the Columbus rate.
And typically within rate evaluations and studies, we try to smooth that rate. So if there is a peak in what the city of Columbus is otherwise charging, we're not going to double that, if you will. So we try to smooth that out to the extent we can.
I mean, when that's gonna start, do you know when the effective date, if we will notice any change in the rate? Because mine, I have been living there for like more than 3 years, paying like 51 exactly. Last month, it went to 71. So does that mean that this is the time where we will see that peak?
So with that, without looking at your bill and the water consumption that you're otherwise consuming, it's hard to say because it's based off of the consumption, and then from that it triggers the sewer rate that accompanies it.
Right, but is there like any ETA, like are we expecting by end of this year if change will be, if the rate start showing up? Or do we know when exactly that, change is gonna start taking effect?
So it would be January. And again, as the mayor alluded to, we get first indication in the fall related to where the city of Columbus is heading with their rates, and then that helps inform our end. Yes.
Will that map with the new sewer line be on the website?
Yes, we'll provide the presentation as well as, are we recording for?
So we will upload the slide presentation that you've seen tonight. We will upload to the website. This is being live streamed, so it's also being recorded. So it will be, the city has a YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube and type in City of Gahanna, you can watch tonight as many times as you want to. You can, if you have trouble sleeping, you can go back. But you could also, every council meeting for the last 4 or 5 years is on there. Every planning commission meeting is on there. We've had other town hall discussions on everything from, actually, we did one on the smoke and dye testing way back when. That is still on there. So you can go back years and watch many of the public meetings that we've had. But this will also be available for you on that as well.
This is for the mayor, so this has nothing to do with the sewer, but I know there's a sidewalk project that's going on, and just wondered when that might become available for our sewer.
So actually, that would be director.
So we do have a sidewalk maintenance program that otherwise follows our street maintenance program, as well as a look-back program. As the city conducted improvements over 2022, 23, 21, 22, 23, we're looking back to those programmatic years to streets that were resurfaced, reconstructed, to go back and do preventative, to do the maintenance activities on those given streets. We rate the pavement and curb condition every 2 years to help inform the capital investments that go into the preventative maintenance as well as reconstruction. And that's the process within itself. We also are looking at water utilities, other planned projects in the area, so that we're not in a position of we tear something up, put it in service, and then the water line breaks and we're tearing that street up again. Or a utility provider such as Columbia Gas has improvements in a particular area. We're mindful of their work, so they're not tearing up the roadway shortly after our work, to the extent we can plan and program that. So as it relates to that, we provide a recommendation on the street program. I believe coming up here for 2025, the reconstruction programmatics yet to be finalized. Laura, Heil, Rocky Fork Drive North, and I think White Swan and Embassy are a couple of streets that are in consideration for not only street reconstruction, but water line replacement. We're in the evaluation mode of the resurfacing as well as crack seal, slurry seal to keep the pavements up in good condition. So without getting into the pavement condition side of things, if I knew the street, I could probably pull that up and understand what the condition of a given section of roadway is and how that compares to other areas that are in need as well.
Walking the street, that's not bad, the sidewalks are, it's to the point where it's stone in some places, there's no pavement at all. Or a tire view. And then Hermitage needs redone that street, of course, Johnstown, James Road, there, yeah.
I was going to say that keeps us busy.
I would say to that, where to start with that? So if you might remember, issue 12 was passed back in May of 2019. And January 2020, going into 2020 was supposed to be the first year where we really recognized that extra 1% income tax. Of that extra 1% income tax, 75% of that is dedicated to capital needs. We have a backlog of capital needs. We last year adopted for the first time ever a capital improvement plan because we have so many projects that we have inherited, and then there's new ones that come up that we weren't expecting that now we have to deal with. So the capital improvement plan is to identify all the capital projects that we can think of, but set forth kind of, I call it the strategic plan for capital projects. Here's what we're going to address in the next 5 years. Here's what we're going to address in the 5 years after that. And help our council as we go to council, and we work with council to prioritize those, so we know we've got to deal with streets now, we've got to deal with the water project, we've got to deal with the sanitary sewer project. What project can we do now? What can we put off to the side? So that capital improvement plan is adopted every year. I think did we just adopt the 2025 capital plan? I believe we did. And then that will we'll use that capital improvement plan when we prepare the budget for 2025. We will pull projects from that capital improvement plan that has just been adopted and take the projects from that and incorporate those into the capital budget for 2025. So it's much more transparent to residents as we go forward as to what projects we've identified and we are working on. But a large part, in addition to what Director Comlike identified with the proprietary funds, we also have those issue 12 capital funds that now have really helped us to start to catch up on our roadways. He gave that $4.9 million number to just to put that in perspective. That's what we have spent on our roads and as part of our street program every year since 2021, I believe. So we have done, gosh, how many miles? 30, I forgot what the miles is, 54 miles of road.
In excess, yeah.
In terms of rebuilding and repaving, which previously, before issue 12, we were doing potholes and going, let's hope that holds. So issue 12 really has allowed us to start rebuilding antiquated roadways and repaving and extending the lives of those roadways. And then integrating a sidewalk program that helps homeowners mitigate those costs, because sidewalk maintenance under HOG law is homeowners' responsibility. So we've created that program to try to help mitigate that. But we're trying to follow best governance practices in doing that. One of the other things that Director Comlike mentioned was the street program. So in the past, the way streets would be rated is the Director of Public Service and Engineering at that time would drive around the community and go, well, that street looks like a 65. We don't now. We use a program called Street Scan every 2 years. They have a camera affixed to a vehicle. They drive every street in the entire city, and they collect objective data so that those streets are then rated based on objective data to help prioritize these streets are in the worst conditions and need to be done. So, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Again, I do appreciate everyone's time during an evening, and more to come on the. We'll keep you apprised. Again, we intend to provide an overview to City Council on September 9th, and then come forward with action plans shortly thereafter. So everyone have a great evening. Thank you.